Hi everyone, my name is Laura Ferrales,
My name is Jordan Pena.
and we are Kasamahan's Community and Political Affairs co-directors this year.
October is recognized as Pilipinx American History Month, also known as PAM.
It is held in October to commemorate the first recorded presence of Filipinos in the United States. This PAM season, we really wanted to focus on and explore what being a Pilipinx American means to our Kasamas.
Shout out to our historian Jess Viray for recording, and we hope you enjoy.
I'm Danny, and one word I would use is lakas, and anyone who speaks Tagalog knows what that means.
My name is Joshua Don Bascos. One word I'd use to describe being Filipino American. I just say prideful. Everyone within the Filipino American community is so proud to be part of this culture, and especially um, since my time in Kasamahan, I feel like that's just been amplified, and I've really gotten the chance to really explore my culture outside of the more mainstream aspects of it.
Hi, I'm Eliza Reese by Katinko. And one word I would say would probably be like resilient. Yeah.
My name is Rihanna, and one word that I would use to describe being Filipino American is fluid. I chose the word fluid because I think being Filipino American can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but that doesn't change the fact that you're Filipino American. So, yeah, identify as how you want to identify.
Um, my name is Jada Johnson, and one word to describe being Filipino American, I would say colorful.
Okay, my name is Janelle, and I would say one word to describe being Filipino American is rich.
My name is Ella Santos, and I think one word that I would use to describe being Filipino American is diverse. Um, Not only in that they're like being Filipino American comes with a lot of different experiences for each person, but also in the fact that there are a lot of Filipinos who are different mixed races, come from different kinds of households, and also just have different like traditions and different dialects that they speak depending on where their parents were born and raised and things like that.
It was honestly really fun. I mean, understanding a balance between my parents' culture and also mine has always been a fun type of, I guess, little challenge for me growing up because there were so many moments where they would speak in Tagalog and they would not let me answer in English. So that's always been a fun little challenge, but it's always been a blessing too.
So I come from a big family. My mom has 7 siblings, and my dad has 17 first cousins. So there would always be just huge family parties, whether it was Christmas, a Manny Pacquiao fight, a lot of food, lots of food, and just being able to, coming like I'm from the Bay Area, so there's always um, Filipinos around me, Filipino restaurants, Filipino, festivals, and um, I've been really lucky to be um, in the Bay Area and then coming to a school with one of the only Philippine studies programs in the country and in a school, where our Filipino American student organization is the biggest on campus. So
For me, I grew up in Daly City slash San Francisco, and I'd say a lot of like how I identify as Filipino American is based off of like my family and how I grew up. Um, I grew up around a lot of Filipinos too, so like in my brain, like being Filipino American wasn't like different from anyone else in the world because everyone else in the world was Filipino American when I was little. And I think as I grew up and I got exposed to more like other people, it like definitely showed me how like special it is to be Filipino American and how like special my family is. And it's something to be proud of for sure. Yeah.
What a loaded question. Thanks, Jordan. No, I'm a 1.5 gen immigrant, so it took a long time for me to try and figure out what was the good balance for that. So for a long time, it was either just Filipino or American. But now that I'm in college and I found a lot of Filipino American friends and just found a community here, I realized that being Filipino American could just mean both and that there's no real definition to it. So it's been fun. Yeah.
I feel like for me, my experience is definitely going to be different than a lot of people's. One, because obviously I'm half white, and two, because in the fourth grade I actually moved to the Philippines. So I spent a majority of my life also in the Philippines. So I am Filipino American, but I'm also from the Philippines. So adjusting to American culture was hard when I moved back here. But being from America and when I first moved to the Philippines, that was also a large culture shock for me. I learned the language when I was younger because my Lola spoke it, and that's how I communicated with her. I grew up calling my sister ate, and then I stopped really early on because kids in grade school would ask me, "Why are you calling your sister at Janelle?" My sister's name is Janelle, by the way. Not to be confused with our executive director, Janelle. Um, but yeah, so I stopped calling my sister ate, and I still have issues calling her that to this day, just because kids thought it was weird that I did that. And then when I moved to the Philippines, I started calling everyone that I wasn't related to ate, but I couldn't call my own sister that because it was related to the fact that I got judged for it when I was here in America. So I definitely think it's very hard to just sum up in a few sentences, but I do think that the experience that I do carry, it's not that it's like the most unique one in the world, but I do feel like I've experienced culture shock both on the American and the Philippine side, and it's also navigating that as a biracial person is really interesting too.
I would say for me, I feel like my Filipino identity and like cultural background did kind of bleed into some aspects of my life. Not bleed, I don't want to say that word, but it was there and it wasn't, in the sense that like I think I got the very general and sometimes stereotypical aspects of being a Filipino American. So like the parties and the karaoke and the well known dishes, which was by no means a bad thing, right? I loved growing up with those things. I think that those things were unique to my Filipino family and the other Filipino families I knew around me. Um, I said Filipino. Wait, I'm gonna give a different answer to this. Actually, I don't think I like that. Um, Head is itchy. Sorry, don't put that in there.
I'm putting it all
Okay. Okay, I would say for me, growing up Filipino American, I'm a second generation. So I was born here and raised here, and my parents came from the Philippines when they were like young adults, so like after college. Um, I feel like my family did integrate certain aspects of Filipino culture into my life. So they didn't teach my brother I Tagalog, but I did grow up hearing it and kind of being familiar with it. Of course, there were cultural dishes in my life. There was lots of karaoke and family parties and kind of like, I guess, what you would consider to be more of those surface level things, like in full transparency. And I don't think I realized how much I was missing or like how much I hadn't seen until I got to college and I got to Kasamas, to be honest. So I think I always carried that pride with me and I always did feel connected to the Philippines and to the culture, especially when I got to visit the Philippines for the first time, which is when in like 2019, I would say. But I do feel like it wasn't until I got to college that like, you know, like when you're at the ophthalmologist, the eye doctor, and they're like one or two, and like one of them's like really clear. It was like suddenly like I could see everything so much clearer, and like I say that, and I'm still learning so much. Like I still think I've only scratched the surface, but I think definitely the transition once I got to college has been really, really eye opening for sure.
I think growing up Filipino American was definitely a thought provoking experience. It didn't take me until a lot of my college career to realize just how much being Filipino American really impacted who I am and what my identity is now and how I present myself, both like here at USF and at home. Um, but I think growing up Filipino American made me realize that I like am surrounded by so much love and care and empathy, and that it's my mission to bring bring that same energy and also um, give that forward to a lot of different people that I come across, or at least every person that I try to come across. It's definitely influenced the way that I lead in this space and the way that I carry myself um, on this campus. And I hope that it continues on as, like, even as I leave these spaces.
I feel like it's been everything to me. The values that my parents instill in me, also, especially just, the family aspect in particular. I think every Filipino can relate to that. And I think just, being able to have so much fun is just something that I do miss when I'm not home. But I think it's just it's just been really fun overall.
Yeah, just again, like I have such a big family, such a family that really, has made me want to be really proud of my culture and always remember my roots and where I come from. And then coming to USF, the two organizations that I've been really a part of are USF Athletics and Kasamahan. And I knew I really wanted to be a part of Kasamahan. And I've been so grateful for everything that Kasamahan has been able to give me and really teach me about the parts of Filipino culture that aren't as mainstream, that aren't on TikTok, on Instagram, that aren't just Manny Pacquiao and Jollibee. Like, um, it has really been at the forefront of my identity, I think. Like, I will always represent the Bay and I'll always represent being Filipino.
I'd say pretty strongly. Again, I hadn't thought of it as something like so heavily impacting my identity until I came into contact with other people, and I was like, wait, no, like that's like something you're proud. But I'd say like my identity as a Filipino American greatly impacts like the work that I do. I'm really into like education, community organizing, activism, like um, politics major. So like my identity and what makes me special is very like deeply rooted, and also like my family, I'd say, like which goes hand in hand with being Filipino American. But yeah.
I think being Filipino American really allows us to have a unique identity in the sense that our history really defines who we are as people, but then we still share a lot of similarities with other um, cultural communities, like our POC allies. And I really like that having our identity allows us to recognize that we should stand in solidarity with other communities and that we share a lot of those things, and that it doesn't necessarily separate us from each other. Yeah.
I definitely think that Filipino culture, even when I was here in America, is the only culture that I was really exposed to. Um, my dad's originally from Canada, so you don't really hear a lot of like, oh, Canada. I didn't even know the Canadian national anthem until um, like maybe 3 years ago. I didn't know that was a thing until people started talking about it. Well, I knew they had a national anthem, but I didn't know what it was. I don't know a lot about my dad's side of the family. Like he'll talk about it, but the cultural side isn't prominent. What's prominent about my culture experience is my Filipino side. I grew up speaking the language, learning it. I grew up around my mom's cooking, my lola's cooking, because cooking is their love language. And then I moved to the Philippines, and then moving back here further solidified how much Philippine culture means to me and how much learning about it means to me. I think being Filipino American is a large part of my identity, but also how I choose to live my life, what I choose to research on, what I do care about. It's all intertwined in my identity of being Filipino American.
Ooh, I kind of talked about that a little bit just now. Um, but yeah, being a Filipino American, um, it's taught me to be accepting of myself even when it feels uncomfortable. I think growing up in America, there are a lot of things that, especially about like my intersecting identities, that kind of feel shameful at times. It's very hard being a person of color sometimes, but it's also very hard being a woman. But I also have certain privileges with the education that I've received and the opportunities that I've been given. And so it is really like Filipino culture, it's the experience is so much about accepting all of the things that come your way, whether it is good or bad, and trying to make the most of them and trying to um, put yourself forward in a way that not only you can feel proud of, but in a way that other people can feel the sense of pride that you're taking in it as well. Um, and yeah, in terms of identity, it has taught me, like, being Filipino American has taught me so much about like why I deal with the struggles that I deal with, like in the ways that I do. It's taught me so much about um, like familial and collectivist intentions and culture, and it those are things that I love to look at and implement and try to embody in my everyday life.
I think just feeling my most authentic self. I feel like as a Filipina, it's sometimes it's hard when you're in school because you have to be a certain way, or like you kind of expect being a certain student or just, type of stereotype to fit into. But I feel like when I'm with family and just, being with them means a lot. And also memory in particular, I had my sweet 16 in my mom's province in Bataan, and we basically had a block party for the whole neighborhood and stuff. So I would definitely say that's a core memory and just probably my favorite Filipino memory as well.
For me, I would honestly say my freshman PCN 50. Just as ironic as it, or not ironic, as corny as it sounds, like that PCN magic was real, and just knowing that it was such a milestone. PCN, even though it was the first meet, like I've never been a part of something that big. Like there were, what, can't remember the exact number, 100 plus of us backstage, all there for the same reason, wanting to represent the culture and represent parts of the culture that aren't as spotlit as others. So just being on that stage, dancing with my friends, and just all the festivities after it, and all the practices, all the run throughs, all you know the stress and getting yelled at by Ate Erna, which was very worth it. But just remembering, just experiencing all that, and having all of it on video, all of it on Flickr, just being able to show my future family and whoever I meet down the road that I was a part of this, I think will really always stick with me.
I think it's our uniqueness, and I think it's our collective like struggle. I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about, not a lot of people like want to address, but I think it's something that I think our ability to overcome that, and not just like us as Farlams, but also like our parents, our grandparents, any elders that came here, is something that I like cherish a lot. And I think I'm like, any struggles that I face, I just remember that, and it like empowers me. But yeah.
My favorite thing about being Filipino American is recognizing other Filipino Americans in the wild and not necessarily knowing straight off that they're Filipino American, but then I generally believe we all have a universal feeling that once you lock eyes with someone and you know they're Filipino, there's just that sense of immediate belonging and immediate connection. I think that's really special to our community, and it just makes meeting other Filipinos all the more special. So, yeah.
My favorite memory. I don't know if this is my favorite memory. I'm actually going to say two separate things because no one can stop me. You can edit it out, but please don't. Okay, I'll just cut to it. One of my favorite memories in the Philippines was being there, and I lived on a farm in the Philippines for a few years, and there was this ilog, or like this river near us, and you could like walk down to it on the dirt roads. And one of my favorite things was going down to that river with my cousins. It was a really good memory that day. And we just like stood in the river. My titas were there, my aunties, and my titos, my uncles were also there. And my whole family was there, and extended family. And we were just in the ilog for the whole day. I feel like my second cousins and third cousins were also there around the same time. It was like a whole family gathering of everyone on my grandma's side. And then we went back to our house, and all of my cousins, like, we all slept on the floor. Afterwards, like, our hair was wet too because we went swimming. And I also just remember like waking up really early that morning and sitting outside by we had a bahay kubo. This is so Filipino. We had a bahay kubo in the backyard, and I sat by it, and the wind was just blowing. And being in the provinces, I feel like is really magical. Um, but my first like really fundamental experience being back here in America was freshman year PCN, sitting in McLaren during McLaren run throughs and watching that Zinkill set for the first time and realizing, wow, there is so much more outside of what I know. And obviously, like, learning about the different islands in the Philippines and the different cultures and the indigenous people of the Philippines, obviously I know that there's something more, but I think that memory really cemented to me that of how much I don't know and how much I can know. And that was just a really beautiful moment that I think I'll never forget. I think the first single piece that you watch in PCN really is the most magical thing ever. But
Hmm. Um, Obviously, I could say so many things. I think one thing that I've been reflecting on a lot recently, especially because it is my senior year, and I think I'm just very like introspective, but also very nostalgic. I think to be Filipino American in the Bay Area and in the city of San Francisco is such a blessing and a privilege because um, not only am I surrounded by so many other people who are also Filipino American, but just the resources that we have to learn about the Philippines is just insane. And like, I've really been thinking about it so much this year, like thinking about Kasamahan, thinking about YPSP, thinking about um, external organizations like Parangal and Barangay and Kabataan Alliance, all these things that are like centralized here, you know, having the Soma Pilipinas district, having all of these things available in San Francisco and so close proximity to me and so readily accessible is such a privilege, truly, because I know that there are so many cities like in the Midwest or like something that like probably don't have these things, right? So I think it's just awesome that I'm surrounded by so many people who are making the active effort to keep the history alive, to keep the stories alive, to share them with everybody, and that I get to make use of those resources and get to know those people and build connections with them. And I just think about it a lot, especially now that, you know, I'm graduating. Like, soon I will be leaving Kasamaan behind, right? And I don't mean that in a sad way, just like, you know, objectively, I'm graduating. But I just feel so grateful that like this space was here for me when I came into college, and I've grown a million times since because of it, right? That's what I hope everybody can experience at Kasamahan and just everything else that SF has to offer. But yeah.
Why I deal with the struggles that I deal with, like in the ways that I do. It's taught me so much about like familial and collectivist intentions and culture, and it those are things that I love to look at and implement and try to embody in my everyday life.
Okay. The last question. What is your favorite memory or thing about being Filipino American?
I think my favorite thing about being Filipino American is the fact that a lot of other Filipino Americans can share in this thought that, like, it is okay to be different. It is okay to have these little, like, differences between ourselves and other cultures, but truly accepting that whether or not like we're half Filipino or like a quarter or a full or like just because we grew up in America, accepting that we are Filipino in our own ways and that doesn't change just because we are Filipino American. And I know that is something that is so heavily like debated and talked about, but I truly believe that if you want to appreciate the culture, be aware of it, and immerse yourself in it, there is no right or wrong definition of being Filipino, and I feel like that is something that Filipino Americans that I've met understand so well, um, because it can be hard at times to feel like you're like not necessarily Filipino enough, especially growing up in America. There are a lot of people like myself who don't know how to speak Tagalog or don't really understand it too much. And like it unfortunately isn't necessarily our fault. Um, but it's also the fact that a lot of those people are so willing to like unlearn that they can't do anything about it, and take those steps to try and appreciate our history, our culture, and our identity as a community a little bit more, and even try and learn about what life is like overseas in the Philippines before like the present like 2020s, before the 1900s, like pre-colonial history. um it truly is about like accepting all of those things and trying to make the best of it. And again, I think that is something that Filipino Americans understand so well and something that I found so much community in at my time here.